now he's found.
Thank you. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this opportunity to be together again this morning. Thank you for your care for us, your watching over us. We thank you for the things that your Spirit is doing in each of us and as us as a small community of believers, seeking to know you better, seeking to follow you better, Jesus. So we just ask that you'd be present in a special way with us this morning. Amen. Wonderful. This is the third week in our Simply Jesus series this summer. We've been doing a kind of a summer series that's given me a little bit of a break because I don't have to prepare as much material every Sunday because we're having a 15-minute or so talk by a number of speakers that I just was so blessed by. I wanted to share it with you guys. So a few weeks ago, I did two messages called Wells and Fences. I'm sure you all remember that. You've heard me talk about that before. And in the second of those messages on Wells and Fences, we talked about some of the different cultural expressions of Christianity that you might run into. That there are different cultural expressions, just if you think denominationally in Western Christianity, between, say, evangelical and charismatic and maybe mainline and Catholic and Orthodox expressions of faith. They all have certain cultural markers, or they worship in certain ways. Like you would recognize right away if you walked into a charismatic service how it differs from a Catholic service, right? And you would recognize how an Anglican service might differ from an evangelical service. So, but much of those differences, much of those distinctives have more to do with cultural expressions or what people feel comfortable with when they gather together to worship than they actually do with following Jesus. And I've noticed, and even in my own life, years ago, I would select churches, especially when I was a young man, and music was a really big, important thing for me. Well, still is, but then it was such a big, important thing for me. I couldn't see myself going to a mainline church where all I had was an organ and a piano playing. That just didn't cut it for me. So I chose churches that appealed to my cultural expression, the thing that I was culturally drawn to. And I found, especially in the last few years pastoring, that lots of people choose the church they go to because of the way the culture is manifested in that church more than what the church actually believes or teaches about Jesus. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So we just have humans have this tendency to want to be with other people that have the same likes and dislikes as we do. And so we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, and then toward the end of that, I showed you a video of the Lausanne group who is doing cross-cultural work, who have recognized that Jesus himself is appearing in dreams and visions to many Muslims today across the Arabic world. And then many of those Muslims are choosing to enter into some kind of a relationship, or they want to follow Jesus in their lives, but they still continue to identify culturally as Muslims. Well, this raises all kinds of questions for us Western Christians. Well, how can you do that? A lot of us would say, no, you have to renounce all of that Muslim idea in order to follow Jesus. But people are reconsidering or considering, what does it actually mean to follow Jesus? What are the necessary ingredients of that? And what are the cultural manifestations of that? And so today's speaker is going to push that button a little bit more for us today. He's a guy named Carl Madearis. He's an international expert in the field of Arab American and Muslim Christian relations. A lot of Christians wouldn't even get beyond that sentence. An international expert in the field of Arab American, okay, but Muslim Christian relations, a lot of Christians couldn't even get beyond that sentence. But he acts as a catalyst for a number of current movements in the Middle East to promote peacemaking as well as cultural, political, and religious dialogue leading toward reconciliation. He is the author of the acclaimed book on these issues, Muslims, Christians, and Jesus. He and his wife, Chris, and 3 kids lived in Beirut, Lebanon for 12 years. Through their unique and strategic approach around the Arab world, they encouraged university students, business professionals, and political leaders to live their lives by the principles and teachings of Jesus in order to change their societies and nations. He spends much of his time today working with leaders in both the West and the Arab world with the hope of seeing the Arab and Middle East and West experience full and fruitful relationships through the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. So I teased you a little bit with a little video of him last week, and we'll watch the whole thing this morning.
So we're in the home of the Hezbollah leader. He lives in South Lebanon. The Hezbollah is a Shiite Lebanese organization. They're terrorists. If you're on the other side of the border, they're heroes if you're on the other side of the border. But we're in his home. I take trips like this often. We had some political leaders, we had some business leaders, we had some pastors with us, about 12 of us with him, and we spent 2.5 hours at this point talking about Jesus, as we always do with these guys, and it goes well, as it usually does, and it was going well. And he was sharing some things. We were reading the scriptures together, reading the Bible, and then we just were closing up with prayer. And so we gathered around him, laid our hands on him, and we're praying for him. As we're praying, the Hezbollah TV station walks in. And the Hezbollah TV is called Madearis. Actually goes around the whole Arab world. About 300 million people watch this. And the Hezbollah TV comes in, the guy with the camera, the guy with the microphone, the guy with the light stand, and they see us pray, laying hands on the Hezbollah leader, and they I think they were surprised, wondering if they were trying to kill him or something. And they stopped very quietly when they realized we were praying, and they just paused. And when we were done praying, they came up and asked the Hezbollah leader, could we interview the governor that was with us? And the governor looked at me and said, do I want to be on Hezbollah TV? I said, sure, that's not you won't be in politics anymore, but you can do whatever you want. And so he said, maybe I better not. So the Hezbollah leader said, just interview Carl, he'll do it. He does, he always does that. And I've done that quite a few times. And so I said, sure. So I'm just sitting there. The guy with the microphone comes up. He has a microphone just like this. And he goes like this, a little red flashing light goes on the camera. And the guy with the lights holding the light. I found out later it was a live feed. I didn't know that at the time. It would have been nice to know that at the time, but little detail. And he says, we're here with Mr. Carl. I don't really have a title, so I become Mr. very quickly. Mr. Carl and his delegation. And Mr. Carl, we'd just like to ask you 2 questions. Could you please tell us why you love the Hezbollah and hate Israel? Now, you don't all know me, but just in case you're wondering, I don't love the Hezbollah organization, and I don't hate Israel. Obviously, neither one. So it's a trick question. I'm not very good at this, but as I've been trying to follow Jesus and trying to think like, act like, and sometimes even respond like Jesus, which I'm up to like 0.01%. One of the things I've realized is Jesus does funny things with trick questions. He either never answers them, or he gives a better question back, or he tells a story that doesn't make any sense. We call those parables. So I've been training myself to do things like that. So what I first do, though, is I pray. And the prayer in this kind of a case, situation goes like this. So I did that. And in that prayer is a whole thing. It's a thing about help. It's a thing about I'm a knucklehead. I can't believe I'm here once again. How did this happen to me? But mostly help. So I did that. It just kind of comes out spontaneously. I gulp. I did that. And then I said what I've trained myself to do in those kind of tricky situations, to say, that reminds me of a story Jesus told, which it didn't. But it's not technically a lie, because what you're doing is you're saying it slowly, and you're hoping by the time you get to the word told that you are reminded of a story Jesus told. The key to that is you have to know some stories that Jesus told. We call those parables. So I'm not very bright. I'm not a good memorizer, whatever, but there's like just 45, depends how you count, ish parables. Most of them are really short. I know all of them. And so a few of them would come to my mind easily. So I said that. I went, that reminds me of a story Jesus told. The guy was holding the microphone like this for me. At any time, he could have pulled it back, but he didn't. And he went like this. When I said, that reminds me of a story Jesus told, he went, like, how could the question, tell us why you love Hezbollah and hate Israel, how could that remind you of a story Jesus told? And so and when I said Jesus told, boom, right there, the parable of the good father, or the prodigal son, came to my mind. Now, that's one of 3 or 4, the Good Samaritan. There's a few that would pop into my mind most likely. So that's kind of a cheat. I love the parable of the good father in Luke 15. And so I said, that reminds me of a story Jesus told. There was this wealthy patriarch that lived just over there. We were in Tyre. The biblical cities of Sidon and Tyre are in modern-day Lebanon. We're about 10 miles from the Israeli border. I said that Jesus told this story just over there, this wealthy patriarch that had 2 sons. And the younger son, while the dad's still alive, comes to him and asks for his half of the inheritance. When I said that, the cameraman who's going like this, did this. Like, what? How could the younger son, while the dad's still alive, how could he do that? That's like wishing your father was dead. And then the father gave it to him. He did that again. He kept going back and forth like this quite a lot. Why would the father give? That's crazy. And then the younger son had lots of money, so then he had lots of friends, and he went off to a foreign land and spent all the money, lost all the money, and then lost all of his friends, and then ended up eating with pigs. When I said pigs, the cameraman guy just went real slow, like this. And then he never went back to the hole again. You know, I don't even know where the camera was going from there on, because there's pigs in the story. Muslims don't do pigs like Jews didn't and don't do pigs. There's a younger son asking for his inheritance while the dad's still alive. The younger son, dad's still alive, pigs. At least 3 things are wrong so far. It's a very strange story. What kind of a story? And you can see the guy with the microphone. I don't know why he didn't pull it back. He's just holding it there, and he has like this shocked look on his face. What kind of a story is this? And I'm just looking at the camera, just going for it. I mean, they asked me to, say that. It was a trick question. I feel like if they give me a trick question, I'm going to give them a trick answer. And so, and then I carry on with the story. And you know the story. The younger son comes to his senses, as he should, and then starts to rehearse his speech as he goes back home. Obviously not worthy to be called your son anymore. Obviously not worthy to be called your son anymore, but being your servant would be so much better than eating and sleeping and drinking with pigs. So the younger son is walking back home, probably rehearsing this speech. And it appears that the father's been watching for the son, because when the father sees the son from a long ways away, he runs to the son. When I said the father runs to the son, the guy with the light almost fell over. The guy with the microphone actually went like this. And then he didn't know. And then the guy with the camera, he's just not moved, and his nose is all wrinkled up, and he's just staring at me. What? Do you know that's the most shocking point of that whole story? Patriarchs don't run. Middle Eastern men don't run. That wasn't supposed to be funny. They have men in those days, and still in these days in the Middle East, have kind of man dresses. They're dishdashes, kendoras, thobes, long robes. And so I don't know, because I'm not a woman, but I think if you're a lady and you wear a long skirt, it's kind of hard to run in a long skirt, I would imagine. And I have worn the long man skirts, kind of the robes that are very comfortable, by the way. And the only way you can run in them is to hike them up and kind of pull them up to here, which would be an unthinkable shame. It's actually an unthinkable shame, and no man would ever do that. And no wealthy man of honor would ever run anyway. And he would definitely not run with a skirt hiked up. It's all wrong. There's no chance. And so, but he does that. The father runs down the road. And I did this on the TV. I said, and the father ran to the son. And when I was doing this, and I'm sure when Jesus told this story 2,000 years ago, all the hearers then and the Hezbollah hearers now were thinking, oh, that's good. Justice. The father will kill the son. Obviously, you kill the son. The son is shamed. Do you understand? You don't understand. You're Americans, mostly. And Canadians, it's all the same. So Canadians love it when you say that, by the way. So, you have to kill. You have to kill. The only way to restore honor to the shamed family is to kill the one who has shamed the family. We don't get that. That sounds horrific to us. I'm not saying it's good, but it's the culture then and now of the Middle East. So for sure, the father would run down and kill the son, thus restoring honor to the name of the family who is shamed. But he doesn't do that. He hugs the son, and he wraps a new robe around his shoulders, and he puts a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and he brings the son back home. And then everybody then and on TV that day are saying, oh, it's a very clever father. He brings his son back home to the village to kill him, because you got to kill the son. The younger son. How is that possible? And then the father was so foolish to give him the money, and then he squandered it, and now he comes back home. This is good. He'll kill the son in front of the whole village. That is the right thing to do. That's called justice, then and now. And it's good. It's right. kill the son. And he brought the son back home, and he threw a party. And so I said to the Hezbollah TV, that's why we're here. Because the God we serve throws parties for sinners. And I stopped. And the guy pulled the microphone back, and he said this. He went, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, which is, oh God, oh God, oh God. I'm thinking, he's probably thinking, I'm going to lose my job. And he went like this, and the little light went off in the camera, and he put the microphone down. I'm just sitting there. He walked around the corner, and he said to the Hezbollah leader, who was talking to my governor friend, he said, I told Mr. Carl to tell us why he loved the Hezbollah and hate Israel, but he didn't do that. And the Hezbollah leader said, what did he say? And he goes, he just told the story about Jesus. And the Hezbollah leader said to the cameraman, it's Carl. What did you think he was going to say? And then the Hezbollah leader leaned behind the governor and went like this to me. That's the power of a parable.
All right.